G'day Australia. Oh God, I love this joint. I really love my country and I love my fellow Australians. Everybody knows that. I'm concerned about many things which I'll be talking about in the next few days. I've finally decided, which many of you have been asking about, I've finally decided to release my newsletter, which is not pleasant. In fact, it's bloody frightening, but I believe my fellow Australians need to know the real status of where we are. Today I would like to refer to our problem with Islam. They know it, we know it, the world knows it. But in particular, I want to talk to you today about these ISIS, so-called ISIS brides. Our Prime Minister has lied to us and told us that they've got nothing, and so's Penny Wong. We've got nothing to do with it. It's the law. They've got to come back to Australia. That is not true. And the Prime Minister has a direct hand in getting these people back to Australia. And as far as I'm concerned, I do not want these people back in Australia. Not now, not ever. That's my view. You're, of course, entitled to your own. It's affecting people at all levels of our society, from workers, corporations, people on the street, police and military, and even politicians, which is not unusual, of course. And I'd like to play you just a very quick video from Michaela Cash. And I think what she says is significant of what I believe, or certainly what I believe and what most Australians believe. I'll play that for you now.
In the first instance, you now have Australia a Prime Minister who is blatantly lying to your face. Identity checks, DNA checks, passports being issued, documents for travel being prepared. I'm going to do something really unparliamentary, and I'm going to call bullshit on this Prime Minister. You are lying to the Australian people. You are assisting these women and their children who turned their back on Australia to come back here. Do not treat Australians as mugs.
I hope you found that as entertaining, so-called, as what I did. Not unusual to, I know she's opposition, but she's obviously very passionate about it. So am I. And I'm sure many of you are as well. Most of us know the old story of Cain and Abel. In the biblical sense, Cain, of course, killed Abel with a rock. And I find it interesting that God made the choice that he didn't blame the rock, he blamed Cain, which I think is perfectly logical. But I question our Prime Minister at the horrific Bondi massacre. He blamed guns. And I just wonder whether you'd like to make an analysis in your mind, or you probably already have, I have. Who's right, God or our Anthony Albanese? I'll leave that one with you. I want to show you another, in fact I'll show you the clip about Cain and Abel, or still about Cain and Abel now. Just on the subject of who's right and who's wrong, I mean, all of this, of course, is up to each individual to make their own decisions. However, I find it interesting that a man that I greatly admire, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has in the last couple of days made a statement summarised by this still. I'm sure that most people realise that that still that you just saw of Donald Trump is world-shattering stuff. However, moving on to keep the video as brief as I can. I've mentioned to you before that I'm a very proud member of the Institute of Public Affairs here in Australia, and in fact I highly recommend all of my Australian fellow Australians to think carefully about joining the Institute of Public Affairs. It's not expensive, and they have some of the best brains in Australia. They tell it like it is, they analyse it properly, no bullshit, no sensationalism, they just tell it like it really is, and I believe the whole of Australia needs to know what they say. I'll put up this very quick still. I just ask you to please have a think about that. We're being lied to by many people, and the Institute of Public Affairs is not one of them. Just before we move on, I'd like to this is my newsletter from the Institute of Public Affairs, coincidentally enough. And I'll just read just a couple of quick sentences. Dear Les, you probably don't need convincing that for too long the lunatics have been in charge of the asylum. You make your own decisions about what they're talking about. Mainstream Australians are desperately concerned at the direction of which the elite are taking our culture, our economy and our education system, importing our children's future. Imperiling, our children's future. Final one, often though they are bewildered. For example, they wonder how a murderous attack on Jewish Australians and the Australian way of life at Bondi Beach becomes an excuse to laws not to keep us safe, but to take away our rights. That's the Australian Institute of Public Affairs. I'll leave that with you. Now, this next video that I'm going to play for you has been viewed millions of times. If you haven't seen it before, it will knock your socks off, if I may use that term. This is a lady that I've got terrific high expectations of and an enormous amount of admiration for. I'll play you her video now. Her name is Bridget Gabrielle.
Assalamualaikum. Peace to you all. My name is Saba Ahmed. I'm a law student at American University. I am here to ask you a simple question. I know that we portray Islam and all Muslims as bad, but there is 1.8 billion Muslim followers of Islam. We have 8 million plus Muslim Americans in this country, and I don't see them represented here. But my question is, how can we fight an ideological war with weapons? How can we ever end this war? The jihadist ideology that you talk about, it's an ideology. How can you ever win this thing if you don't address it ideologically?
Great question. I am so glad you're here, and I am so glad you brought that up because it gives us an opportunity to answer. What I find so amazing is since the beginning of this panel, which we are here about Benghazi attack against our people, not one person mentioned Muslims. We are here against Islam, or we're launching war against Muslims. We are here to discuss how 4 Americans died and what our government is doing. We were not here to bash Muslims. You were the one who brought up the issue about most Muslims, not us. And since you brought it up, allow me to elaborate with my answer. There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25% according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful as well. Yet the Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful as well. Yet the Chinese were able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. On September 11th in the United States, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans that day. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So for all our powers of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims, I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out? And since you are the only Muslim representative, send the applause to the end. And since you're the only Muslim representative in here, you took the limelight instead of speaking about why our government, and I assume, are you an American? You're an American citizen. So as an American citizen, you sat in this room and instead of standing up and saying a question or asking something about our 4 Americans that died and what our government is doing to correct the problem, you stood there to make a point about peaceful, moderate Muslims. I wish you brought 10 with you to question about how we can hold our government responsible. It is time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs and start calling it.
G'day again. Look, I'm sorry the video's gone on for so long, but I hope you'll agree with me that we as a nation and as a people are in crisis. The things that you've just seen, in my opinion, need to be seen, and we the people need to act. I'll be talking more about that in the next little while, so please stay tuned. The 2 things that we get from today, I believe, are: 1, we do have a serious problem with Islam. Hopefully that can be resolved, and I call upon the so-called 75% of peaceful Muslims, please stand up. Please stand up and defend peace, calm. That's all I'll say on that score. It's up to you people. And secondly, our government, I have got not a good word to say about any of the government people in Australia today. Again, I'll be saying more about that in the next little while. I ask you, please stay tuned. That's all I've got to say. Exciting times, not pleasantly exciting, but exciting nevertheless. I wish all of my fellow Australians the best of luck. God bless our country, and God bless every Australian. Thank you.